In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about how to select data from more than one table by using joins. First, let's look at the overview for this session. The data that you need for a report could be loaded in more than one table. And join tables enables you to select data from multiple tables as if the data were contained in one table. Joins do not alter the original tables. There are two types of joins. Inner joins return a result table for all the rows in a table that have one or more matching rows in the other table or tables that are listed in the from clause. And outer joins are inner joins that are augmented with rows that did not match with any row from the other table in the join. There are three types of outer joins: left, right, and full. So in this tutorial, we're going to focus on inner join. So an inner join returns only the subset of rows from the first table that matches rows from the second table. You can specify the columns that you want to be compared for matching values in a where clause. All right. Before I show you the first proc SQL program, I'm going to use two proc import procedure to bring in two Excel data file. This is the first data file I'm going to bring in to the SAS. And the output SAS data, I call it score data ng. And then for the second one, this is the second data file, and I'm going to call it score data g. Let's run the first import procedure so we can look at the first data. So this first data, it contains student name and 3 score variable as well as a student ID variable. I call it stu_id. We can see for this data set, we have 10 rows, 10 observations. Let's look at stu_id. For stu_id, it contains from 1 to 4, and also it contains from 6 to 11. So in this data set, we don't have a record with stu_id equals 5. All right, let's run the second procedure. This is the second data set, and in this data set we have 3 variables: student name and student gender and stu_id. Also, let's look at stu_id variable. So this variable contains stu_id with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this data set, it contains a record with stu_id equals 5, and then up to stu_id equals 10. In this data set, we don't have a stu_id equals 11. All right. Let's look at the first proc SQL procedure. In this procedure, again, first I'm using a select clause to select the variable I want to include in the query results. It contains stu_id and name and 3 score variable as well as student gender. And in the where clause, there are 2 tables included. This is the first SAS data set, first table, and I give it alien name as G. And this is the second table, and I give it alien name as ng. And also here, let's look at the where clause. This where clause specifies the condition that match the 2 table. This is G, this represents the first table. This means the stu_id, which is student ID from the first table, equals student ID from the second table, because this ng represents the second table. So this is the matching condition we want to use to match the 2 table. And lastly, I want to order or sort the query result by stu_id. There's one point I want to mention for this program is you probably already note that the column names in the select clause and also in the where clause are prefixed by their table names or table alias, such as for this stu_id, there is a G table alias before this variable name stu_id, and for name is the same story. And also for to stu_id before the variable name has their table alias. So this is known as qualifying the column names, and it's necessary when you specify columns that have the same name from more than one variable. So qualifying the column name avoids creating an ambiguous column reference. All right, let's run this program and see what we got for the result. All right, this is the query result. So let's look at the stu_id. So because we're using that where clause specifying the first table stu_id equals the second table stu_id, only those rows, those matching rows can get into this final result table. So let's say the stu_id contains record with stu_id equals 1, 2, 3, 4, and also from 6 to 10. So we can see the two record like stu_id equals 5 or stu_id equals 11. Those two records didn't get to this query results because each of them are only included in one of the table, but not in both tables. All right. This is this first ProcSQL procedure. Secondly, I'm gonna show you how to create inner joins using inner join keyword, because in this previous ProcSQL procedure, I'm using the where clause to create inner joins. But here I'm gonna use another method. I'm gonna use inner join keywords to create these inner joins. So inner join keyword can be used to join tables. The on clause replaces the where clause for specifying columns to join. And ProcSQL provides 3 keywords primarily for compatibility with the other joins, like alter, right, and left join. So using inner join with an on clause provides the same functionality as listing tables in the from clause and specifying join columns with the where clause. All right. In this ProcSQL procedure, I'm including the same select clause and not the same from clause. In the from clause, I'm using the same input table. So this is the first table and this is the second table. And in between the two joint tables, we need to put the keyword inner join here. And then next here, we're using the on clause to replace the where clause to specifying the condition to join the two table. So here we're using the same condition. The first table stu_id equals the second table stu_id. So in this SQL program, we're using inner join keyword and also the on clause to perform the same task as the previous SQL program. And lastly, I also include alter right clause. So let's run this program and see the results. This is the result from the second SQL program. So you can tell we have the exactly same results. And for the stu_id, we only include record with stu_id equals 1 to 4 and also 6 to 10. All right. So those two methods, either one will create same result. You can choose either one to join the two table for inner joins. All right. Let's move forward. Here, I'm going to show you how to join tables using comparison operators. Tables can be joined by using comparison operators other than the equal sign in the where clause. Before I show you those comments, I'm going to show you this ProcSQL program first. So here I use the select clause to include all the variable I want to select for the query result. And also here is the from clause. We also include the two input SAS table here. But look at the where clause. For this where clause, instead of using the equal sign, I'm using a comparison operator. The condition is like that. The stu_id from the first table less than the stu_id from second table. and also the student ID from second table equals 7. So I'm using this where clause and to specifying the join condition by using comparison operator less than here. This condition in reality it doesn't have any real use, but here I include this condition. It's just for showing how to write the code using comparison operators in where clause to perform the join. And again, I'm using order by clause last to order the result by student ID. All right, so let's run this procedure and let's look at the results. So we can see in this query result we contain 6 records. So remember, in the where clause I specify the student ID from first table has to be less than the student ID in the second table, and also the second table equals 7. So that's why the student ID included in this result table is all less than 7. It's from 1 to 6. All right, so let's go back to the code window. Before we move to the next session, let me show you the log window for running this program. Here, there's a note. The execution of this query involves performing one or more Cartesian product joins that cannot be optimized. Let's go back to code window. Here, I include this note here as well. So you see this message when you run the query that joins table without specifying matching columns in the where clause. So ProcSQL also displays this message whenever the tables are joined by using an inequality operators. All right.